Welcome everybody to another episode of the Inquisition. We've got Quipster Nerd on tonight, which is going to be a pretty good show. Been looking forward to having them on, like I have with all the guests. So yeah, it's going to be a pretty spectacular show. Here, starting to go in a wee bit. Like I might need to trim it right down again. And I hope you're all doing well this fantastic Wednesday. If you get any questions for Quipster Nerd, don't hesitate and right on Darkened Minds, right, Fire Einstein. Alright, Quipster,
Well,
how
hello.
you doing? How you doing?
I'm good. I'm tired. I'm cold. Jesus Christ, it's so cold at the moment.
Mate, you live in London, and that's like, I live in the arse end of Donegal, man. It's absolutely Baltic here.
Oh, oh my God. Well, I'm brown. I'm not meant for this weather. My ancestors did not live in cold places.
What, your ancestors from London?
No. So my ancestors are all over the place. I'm actually half Indian, a quarter Sri Lankan, and a quarter English, and all of my Indian side are from Uganda. So yeah, I'm like 50 Shades of Brown.
50 Shades of Brown. The sequel to 50 Shades of Grey, the lesser known sequel.
I love it.
So thanks for joining us. I'm just trying to get Casey to join now. I've sent him an invite, so Casey, I've invited you, so accept that invite. And we're just waiting for Simon to join us as well.
There we go. Right, evening, gents. Thank you very much. I was on
So we're
time, done. I was on time.
Yeah, you're actually on time, and it's actually Simon that's late today.
Not me.
He must be getting his bed feet into his shoes or something. These people for stop.
Roof panels falling off or some mad shit. I know. Evening, Quipster, matey. Thank you for joining us tonight.
It's good to be here. Is that Terry's chocolate orange?
Yeah.
Top tier. I applaud you, sir.
I'm not diabetic or nothing, but I'm just a fat git. I have to have like a snack and drink for all of these. I'm just.
What? That's not how diabetes works.
No, you know what it was? I had this history teacher, right? And he was always eating and drinking in lessons. And you'd be like, what are you doing? Why are you always eating and drinking? He's like, I've got diabetes. And it's just always stuck with me ever since.
That's how diabetes works. My wife's a type 1 diabetic, and it doesn't just give her free rein to just scoff anything she wants. Well, she can if she wants, because she's only female.
Oh, my blood sugar's low. I better eat a whole Terry's chocolate orange. You know, what better excuse have you got?
There's not much.
I should have done that. I love it.
It's better than getting diabetes dick and it falling off. So, you know.
Is Simon in with us?
Hey, sir.
Yeah, I'm just listening to Casey rant about food.
I can't see used to, so we need to do the old tag team and chat.
For once, I can see everyone say it's great. It's beautiful.
All I can see is the very 50 Shades of Brown yourself, Mr. Quipster Nerd. Again, mate, thanks for joining us. So, usually we're absolutely stoked to have you on. So whereabouts in London is it you're based? Because like Casey is in Enge, which I thought was actually his name, but it's actually a region in London. Whereabouts is it you are from? Whereabouts in London is it you're based?
Oh, I'm just based in South Clapham. Yeah, it's actually quite funny. So I'm from Watford originally, which is more North London, and I live right next to both of my siblings. My sister lives just over there. My brother lives just down there. So we live just in a circumference that we can have sibling brunch every weekend, like true London wankers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, my sister moved out of London, so I don't have that luxury. I say luxury. It'd piss me off if I saw her every week. I say that. So it's done me a favour.
That's probably why she moved, so she wouldn't have to see you every week, to be honest.
Don't blame her.
Amazing.
So usually the way we run this, it's always the same first question we ask everybody, because I think it's just a good staple to fire on straight in there. So what age was it when you first started doing like painting Warhammer, and what was your first mini that you painted?
Ooh, interesting. Okay, so I I don't know if you guys have ever listened to the Conclave podcast that I was on a while ago, but I didn't know I did this, but I seem to track time periods by what American president was in power at the time. So just about pre-Bush administration, so late Clinton, that was when I was getting into Warhammer. So it's
2000, 2001.
yeah, 2000, that kind of time. And I remember specifically what happened. Like, I'm from Watford originally, but my family had a business in St Albans. And so every time I would go through this big shopping centre in Watford called the Harlequin, there was a Games Workshop. I'd walk past it, and as a kid, you look in the window and you're like, that's the coolest shit I've ever seen. What is that? Eventually, I plucked up enough courage and I went inside. And, you know, they showed me this magazine with all these different Space Marines in it. I'm like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And so, yeah, that Christmas, my dad got me the original 3rd edition starter box set with a John Blanche artwork on the front with the Black Templars. And so he got me that, and he got me a combat patrol, because you could buy like a combat patrol of like 5 Marines. And so the first ever thing I painted was a Space Marine Sergeant with a flamethrower.
So I did actually listen to the Conclave, believe it or not, getting back into the hobby donkeys ago. I say donkeys ago, it's like 2019. I was commuting between South Penge and Hendon every day. So it was like the listen to on Thameslink going across London. How did you find all of that? Because it seems like you had, like, I know you said you'd done it up until recently. It seems like you had a good group of lads. You all sort of lived locally in area. You all knew each other and obviously hung out. How did you get into that? And how did you find that experience of having like a respectable podcast?
Yeah. I mean, I loved the Conclave. The reason I had to drop out in the end, it was me and Ed who had to drop out, was just because time, work, we couldn't manage all of it. I'm really happy that Adam was able to continue it with the guys. But in the early days, back when it happened, it was such a funny thing, because basically the Conclave podcast was born out of a WhatsApp group that we're all in. The WhatsApp group is like my gaming group in London. It's called Battlefield Bermondsey.
I was going to ask you about that in a bit, yeah.
yeah, it's all interconnected. So Battlefield Bermondsey was a Warhammer group that was set up by my good friend Charles. Now Charles is Swiss originally, came to London, and he's a high-end, like bespoke furniture designer. And so he has a woodworking shop in London. And in 2019, my 3rd game getting back into the hobby was with him. And so what Charles did was, I think, actually a really fascinating thing. As he started playing games in London, getting back into the hobby, he created a WhatsApp group with people. He was like, you're a cool person, I'm going to put you in this WhatsApp group. So he created his own hobby group. And so a lot of people come to me and they ask, like, how do you find hobby groups and stuff? Sometimes you just have to make them from people you meet. And so Charles put us all in this hobby group, called it Battlefield Bermondsey, because his workshop was in Bermondsey, and he would run Warhammer games for us out of his workshop. And that's how we met. And then, 2019, we would have Battlefield Bermondsey events. We'd all go to the workshop. And then on top of that, we'd also have like painting competitions between each other. We'd pick a topic, or we'd be like, okay, this one's going to be single miniature. And Charles would make us up a trophy, and we all became like good friends that way. And then in 2020, the pandemic hit. And I don't know if you guys remember, there was an app called, it was the one where you could just like you went online and you would just appear in conversations with people. Do you remember the one?
It rings a bell.
It was like a video messaging app. If it like comes up, I'll say the name. But we all ended up using this video messaging app together, and it was every single day in lockdown we were painting together. And then, because I knew Liam and Winters from then, DZTV, I knew them, so I introduced all of my like YouTube friends to all my London friends. And then as lockdown happened, not only were we all painting together and getting to know each other, but we were also then playing Call of Duty together. like my first win on Call of Duty Warzone was with Winters. And so like that all happened. And as that sort of happened, we came out of first lockdown, and I had this idea in my head, like, okay, I want to start a podcast. Who are some good people to start a podcast with? And Rich, Adam, and Ed in Battlefield Bermondsey had all kind of had very similar like ideas. And when I came to the guys, I was like, yo, guys, I want to start this podcast. They were immediately on board. And so at the time, my company had a co-working space. We were in a WeWork in central London. And I was just like, you know what? Screw it. We're all, as every guy who starts a podcast thinks, I was like, we're all funny, interesting people. We should do this podcast. So I've got a lot of like sound gear because I've done a few bits and pieces of podcasting before, but for other things. And so I was like, okay, I've got all the tech stuff. I'll edit it. And so, yeah, we went to my WeWork office at 8 o'clock at night and filmed our first couple of episodes. And it all just kind of went on from there because we just really enjoyed what we were doing. And then on top of that, because of, you know, knowing Winters and Liam, I ended up getting to know like every other Warhammer creator on the planet. And so we were able to invite them onto the Conclave. So if you look at the guest list for the Conclave, it's like a who's who of everyone on Warhammer YouTube. And so, yeah, it just turned into this like big thing, especially over lockdown, because obviously we're in lockdown, there's nothing we can do except paint and podcast. And so, yeah, it became this big project that we went on over time. And then as we started coming out of lockdowns, our episodes became a bit more infrequent just because real life stuff got in the way. And that's why, you know, we had to drop out, you know, had to drop out in the end.
So are you still editing for Winters? Is that still a thing that you're doing? Or?
I wasn't ever editing for Winters. It's actually quite funny. So I helped manage Winters' Instagram for a while. And in fact, I'm the person that made his Instagram for him in 2019. Because everyone knows he's hopeless with technology. So I remember the first time I ever met him, because I knew Liam, Liam was a good friend by this point. I literally ended up going up to Winters and be like, hey, you should have an Instagram. I will manage it for you. And that's like the first thing I ever said to him. So I was managing his Instagram for a while. But I don't have time to edit much stuff these days, which is very frustrating for me. But I'll go up and I'll film like content with him. So yeah, I'm still doing that. It's just I've been, especially over the last year, quite time pressured when it comes to hobby stuff, because last year I went to No Retreat in Gibraltar for the Horus Heresy event. Amazing. Couldn't recommend it highly enough. And yeah, I was pretty down to the wire painting a 3,000 point heresy army for that. And so yeah, I haven't been able to like do as much like filming with people or visiting people, podcasting with people as much as I would like.
So your first encounter with 40k was 3rd edition, so it's Space Marines. When did you start? Because obviously I think you're probably most famous on YouTube for Custodes. So when did the Custodes love start?
It's a funny thing. So I don't know how far back you guys go. Do you guys remember the 3rd edition rulebook? Oh, it was an absolute classic. That stuff had wild stuff in it. But I remember specifically there was a piece of artwork that what's his name? He did the front cover.
John Blanche.
Oh god, John Blanche. Yes. Oh god, terrible. It's been a long day. But there was this John Blanche piece of artwork, and it's this massive ziggurat-like structure, and there's 2 sort of guardians standing in front of it.
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah, I think you guys know the one. And so I remember one of them's got like a giant axe, and the other one's holding like a scroll. I remember looking at that piece of art and thinking to myself, "That's cool, but who the hell are these 2? Because those 2 don't look like anything else in Warhammer. The armor style's different, the weapons are different." I remember looking at it and being like, what are they? Later on, as I was reading through the Horus Heresy, I realized, oh, they're custodians. And so I've always had this, like, not connection, but I guess always this fascination with, like, oh, who are those people? And so as we got to know more and more about the Custodies, as the Heresy novels came out, I was always like team Custodies. But that's actually how I got back into the hobby. So I'm sorry, I'm going on like a random tangent here.
No, go for it.
Okay. But yeah, so basically, I think everyone has that thing where they get into the hobby as a kid and they drop back out, and then they come in later. I kind of did that twice. So the first time I dropped out of the hobby was at school because I went to boarding school from 13 to about 17 because I'm a posh wanker. And the accent gives me away.
Yeah, you also saw you've lost a few games of Soggy Biscuit back in the day.
Oh, I told you. Luckily, I was not there the day of boarding school when they played Soggy Biscuit. I got told about it afterwards, and I was just like, you guys did fucking what? Honestly, if there's anyone watching this who doesn't know what Soggy Biscuit is, don't Google it. Just
don't Google it. Definitely don't
Message
Google
me later, we can play it. Yeah.
Oh, no.
What you should Google, though, is the Blue Waffle. I highly recommend Googling that.
No, don't. I've had a day of different stuff.
Do not Google Blue Waffle either.
Beatspin.com, lemonparty.org. Let's throw them all out there. Fuck it.
No. I think that's like a rite of passage for like guys our age. Like, have you looked up these 4 things on the internet? Oh, terrible. But yeah, so at boarding school, I dropped out of the hobby because it was far away from home. It was in the countryside. I never had access to anything. And so when I came back, I did sixth form at a local school in Watford. This is the funniest thing happened. So basically, it was my first day in a new school. I'm a posh wanker kid from boarding school going to a state school in Watford. I'm thinking, my only experience of this is the in-betweeners. I'm thinking like, oh God, am I about to get stabbed for my accent? Like, am I getting beaten up in the playground?
Did you turn up with a briefcase? Is that half the problem?
God, I'm not that bad, Jesus. But I'm thinking like, oh, what's about to happen? And then I remember I was on a coach. We were coming back from like a little trip in the first week of school. And my now good friend Dom leant over the seat and he told a Warhammer joke. Obviously, me being a Warhammer kid, I laughed along with everyone. And then Dom looked at me and he was like, you don't know what we're laughing about. I was like, yeah, I do. He was just like, no, you don't. I was like, yes, I do. By Ulthanesh, she's one of us. Instantly, I had a group of friends, all of which were into the hobby. And so I got back into the hobby at school. And that was kind of like 5th edition kind of time. Then, obviously, we all finished school, went to uni, discovered girls and parties, dropped back out of the hobby again. But this is where Warhammer's a bit of a cult. Because even if you drop out of the hobby, you're not playing the game or painting, I was still reading the Horus Heresy. Like, I'm still reading the book. And so I'm throughout the whole of uni, throughout my undergrad and my master's, I'm reading the books, I'm keeping up with the Horus Heresy, but I'm not actively buying stuff, I'm not painting. And then it must have been like a Facebook ad or something. So I have a chronic illness. I have something called ulcerative colitis. It's an autoimmune disease, and I was suffering with it quite badly in 2018. And as shocking as it is to hear, I got tired of playing on my Xbox. Like, there was only, I know, right? There's only so much Metal Gear Solid 5 I could play at once. And I was just like, oh, I want to be able to do something while I'm just sitting here feeling ill. And so I think a Facebook ad must have come up for Warhammer. And I was just like, oh, I wonder what's happening with Games Workshop these days. I haven't even looked at the website in years. Looked at the website. Immediately saw the Custodies were an army that you could play. I was just like, yep, that's it. Straight back in. I'm down. Went to Games Workshop at Tottenham Court Road, dropped £400, immediately bought an entire Custodies army, and spent the next like 2.5 years painting it.
So following on from that then, you went Shadowkeepers rather than anything else. What attracted you to Shadowkeepers?
Interesting. So back in the day, when I was originally collecting, 3rd edition, 5th edition, I tried to stay a little bit away from doing like chapter schemes from like the official schemes. So I never had Dark Angels or Ultramarines or whatever. I always picked like my own. And so I tried to continue that. It's quite interesting. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to have my own scheme. I want something a bit different. This black scheme looks really good, but I'm going to change it a bit. I'm going to have black and purple because purple's my favorite color. So I did black and purple instead. And literally a year and a half later, one of the Horus Heresy black books, the next black book came out, and that became an official scheme of the Dankana toy in the Horus Heresy. I was just like, well, that worked out really well. But yeah, it was just, I always preferred to do my own kind of thing a little bit. I've actually swung massively the other way, and now I prefer to do like the official schemes. But at the time, I was just trying to be different more than anything else. Just be a hipster.
And one last one before I hand you over to Dunk. So you're known as the master of the selfie. I mean, yeah, if you're famous for your selfies. I've even heard Winters on videos when you're not even in them mention you and your selfies. So my question is, you had to go 12 months, and on your Instagram you could post no more selfies or no more no more miniatures. Which one would you choose for 12 months?
Ooh, good question. It would have to be selfies, but the only reason for that is because there are enough selfies on my Instagram that people know what I look like. So that would be fine. But it's funny, like, the thing about the selfies is I actually find them to be quite an important thing that I do. And the reason for that is because I'm a natural extrovert. I find socializing very easy. But I know this hobby is full of people who can be a lot more introverted, who find social situations quite difficult sometimes. And so in putting myself out there a bit, in normalizing, putting your face on your Instagram, I think it helps create a more personal connection between myself and the people who look at my stuff. And also from a logistical standpoint, I like going to events. And this is always a thing. And if you guys go to competitions, you must have had this, where you go up to someone and you're like, oh, hey, you're this person. And someone will have a conversation with you and they'll walk off and you'll be like, who the fuck was that? Because you only know their screen name. You don't know what they look like because they never post any selfies on their hobby account.
Yeah, that would make sense. Because sometimes you like to see the person, like, you have a vision. But I used to play Counter-Strike quite a lot back in early 2000, and I ended up joining a clan, and we decided in 2001, 2002 that we would all meet up in Blackpool, right? So we had people coming over from Holland, we had a Danish guy come over, we had a couple of Germans, we had a couple of English guys coming, and another guy from Scotland came. And you know that way when you're playing with somebody and you hear their voices, we're always chatting, but you go with their name and what you think they would look like, and then when they actually see them in real life, they don't look anything how your mind's eye pictures them. So yeah, I totally get why the selfies. And honestly, with your Barnet, why wouldn't you want to show how good your hair is when you're having a Vidal Sunday? Do you know what I mean? But just trying to touch back in your Gibraltar thing, because that was, you did an Emperor's Children army for that.
I did.
Is that right? Yeah. So how did you get involved? How did you get involved with that? That must be an amazing playing on a boat as well, but to have that pressure of doing the Emperor's Children, aka the nonce army. How did you get involved in that aspect? How did you get involved in that?
So there's a few things. There's sort of two pathways for that question. So number one, how did I know to go to Gibraltar, and the other pathway is why did I choose Emperor's Children? So Gibraltar first. So I got invited along to the No Retreat Legends event a couple of years ago, which was absolutely phenomenal. It's one of the best weekends of my life. So for anyone watching this who doesn't know what Gibraltar and No Retreat is, it's this invitational Warhammer competition that takes place in Gibraltar on a yacht. It's like mad. It's like a 5-star hotel yacht, and it's run by SN Battle Reports. And so a while ago, they did this No Retreats Legend event where they invited all these YouTubers and me to this big event, and it was all done for charity. And so I knew the format of the event. I knew Pardo and all the SN guys, and I was just like, this is something I want to come back to. 100%. This is a fantastic competition. And so I applied, because you have to apply and go through a process to go to No Retreat. Yeah, you have to go on the website, fill out an application, send pictures of your armies, because the point about No Retreat is that the level of hobby is top tier. Like, honestly, I thought going to the No Retreat Heresy event, I was like, I've won a couple of pins at Golden Demon, I've got a couple of painting awards, I'm going to see if I can, pick up something for a character. Not even close. Wasn't even competition. I got smashed. Like, the people who won, like, Best Painted at No Retreat, they are beyond top tier. I think the guy who won a bunch of trophies got, like, a silver at Golden Demon. Like, it's insane. But to go to that level of competition is so nice, because everyone that goes there, it's a small group, it's like 20 guys. Everyone's really nice. Everyone, like, there's no dickheads, and everyone's super passionate about the hobby. So it's like 4 days in a fun place doing a cool thing that you all enjoy with nice people. So couldn't recommend it highly enough. As for Emperor's Children, so I am by nature a massive perfectionist. Yeah. So there was and purple is my favorite color. So there was always something that really attracted me to the Emperor's Children. Their ethos, when they're loyalist, is something that I was always like very in tune with. And I always think if you're going to collect an army, you should have like something about that army that really connects with you. And the Palatine Phoenix, which is Fulgrim's Primarch novel, is one of my favorite just books of all time. I absolutely loved it. And so I always said, okay, if Horus Heresy gets re-released in plastic, I'm in. I'm going to do Loyalist Emperor's Children. That's it. I'm straight in. And I ended up being able to go to the Horus Heresy release weekend when it first came out. And I was like, yeah, 100%, that's it. I'm in. Like, I'm doing this. And so, I applied to No Retreat with like 20 models in a tank. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I got 3,000 points to do in 8 months. And I just kind of did it. I've got a Kratos battle tank, which looks a bit ropey, but it just made it. So,
It was just amazing to like see you being on a boat, and like this thing, like the reason that we started doing this in tradition was to get like a lot of people like yourselves, like people that are followed quite a lot, but we also wanted to get people that aren't followed to maybe are really good painters, and as you say, maybe a wee bit more introverted and don't really push themselves out there. So how do you find that balance of like being a kind of influencer to a certain extent, but also trying to keep in touch with everybody else? Because like when I first started painting, like I think you were one of the first people that actually helped me on my journey. When I first started painting, I used to bombard you, like I do everybody, bombard you with pictures and asking you, how did you get this highlight and how did you get that highlight? Right, and it's good to see that like, there's people like you that do have that balance where they do reach out to the people that aren't followed as much, that aren't as good painters, but then you also see people that don't reach out, which is quite annoying. So how do you feel that the hobby's gone in that aspect, where you've got a lot of people that have like top tier influence, like to the people that don't have a lot of influence?
As in, how do I maintain like that conversations and relationships with people? Yeah. So that's a good question. I think this hobby is small enough still. It's a small enough niche that everyone's very accessible. Like even people with big followings, you can send them a DM and it's quite likely that they'll read it or at least be aware of it. And so one one thing I've always enjoyed, and I think I get this from my mum actually, because my mum is we have our business, our family business is we have a training school, and yeah, my mum loves teaching, and so I think I get from her. I also love helping people. I love teaching, and so when people come to me with questions like, how do I do this? How do I do that? I always enjoy those interactions. It's not effort for me. I really like sharing knowledge and stuff, and so yeah, it's not difficult for me at all to sort of like maintain that balance, because it's just something I really enjoy. Like that's how I grew a following in the first place, because I think it's very easy to look at Instagram and people who have followings on Instagram and be like, I want to do that. That was never my intention. My intention was always, I like getting to know people. I like this hobby. I like connecting people. I like, sharing my knowledge. And so that's how this evolved and grew. Just like, out of my passion for the hobby rather than me wanting to gain this, following. And so I view it as quite a privileged position. So when people come to me with questions and stuff, I try and give people as much as possible, like time of day to like help. But I will admit sometimes it can be quite hard, especially if like work is a little pressure or anything. But I try my best, basically.
Yeah. Cool. And it is good because I think, like Dunk said, when I joined up on this, I was just spamming accounts to follow. Yours was in there. And even if it's just a silly comment on a story you post, you've always got a minute just to send a quick reply or an emoji or something dumb like that. But for some of the smaller accounts, like if you've got 10 followers and you message someone with like 15,000 and they reply to you, you're like, oh, fucking hell. It's like a little boost for you almost, isn't it? So we've all got to start somewhere. We all started small. Doesn't matter whether you've got 1,500, 15,000, we've all on, like you say, it's almost the same journey. It's the same world we're in. And it just takes 2 seconds, just a bit of nicety, I think, which some people forget. Dunk sort of commented on this before. When we're doing this, Dunk and Simon, bless them both, I've done no work on it, but these two have gone out there and harassed and harangued people. And that's why we've ended up with like Peach coming on, not Dan Abnett, the other one, Graham McNeil coming on, Duncan Rhodes, we've had him come on and chat to us. And, these are no small names by any measure, but it's down to just these two just harassing people and never giving up. And it's great that people have got the time for you.
It's not even just that. It's the fact that this is a very unique hobby as well, and a very unique niche, because for each other, everyone in this hobby is the worst fucking enabler ever. Like, not only do we try, our whole aim is not only are we trying to get people into the hobby, we're trying to drag everyone we can into this hobby with us. This is the most, like, almost annoyingly, like, open community ever. We're trying to get everyone to do this. And so I think as a community, we love sharing ideas and getting to know each other and, like, just, like, being together, like, nerdy together. And so I think that's, like, quite a powerful thing. And so, like, whenever you ask people who have a following or whatever, like, oh, do you want to do this? They're always, like, their first inclination is to say yes, because we all love talking about this stuff. We all love sharing this stuff. The only times I've ever said, like, sorry, I can't do that, is just, I've got a work thing or I've got a family thing that night. Like, those are the only ever reasons. And so, yeah, I think as a community, we just love saying yes. And also, I do have to go in a second to apologize.
So I'm going to go back quickly to something I think I heard you mention on the conclave donkeys ago. I don't know if it was you or somebody else, but I could have sworn it was yourself. Mm-hmm. Obviously, with all your minis, you go into the investment of giving them all individual names, which, it's about giving your army a bit of character. But did I remember you saying you had an Excel spreadsheet which recorded every time someone had killed something, every time someone had died, any sort of little things of note from like little battles or campaigns and stuff like that? Was that yourself?
It was. So it's not a spreadsheet anymore. So now I use a project management software called Trello. And I do this for my custodians as much as anything else. So all my custodians have names. They all have a backstory. And So the way custodians work is as they Balrak in the chat.
I'll show you mine now, mate. You don't want to see it, but
He's taking time away from his busy streaming schedule to
amazing. But yeah, so like all my custodians have names. They all have backstories, and as custodians do things, great deeds and whatever, they earn more names. So if my custodians ever do anything cool on the tabletop, I'll give them a new name, write that in their little thing at Trello. And yeah, and so for example, I had a custodian who stood on an objective and like tanked an entire shooting phase from a Necron army just by himself, and it won me the game. So I gave him the additional name Opikut, which means guardian in Ukrainian, I think. And so like that sort of adds to his story, so to speak.
Cool. And given, let's say, like obviously you comment on your perfectionism there. Given that you said about the Emperor's Children's notoriously perfectionate, the Custodies always just extra big pretty boys, all that sort of stuff, and yourself to an extent. I mean, you're well groomed, you look after yourself. Do you find it hard being an attractive man doing this sort of hobby? Because I have to admit, I find it fucking horrendous. It's the worst thing being this attractive and doing this sort of hobby, because I've been told that I look like a Picasso painting, and I took that as a compliment. So how hard do you find it doing this sort of thing and sort of not coming across as like, I don't know, a bane at all?
It's interesting. Like, I definitely will say I don't look like necessarily the stereotype of how nerdy I actually am. But I like that. And I think it's a good thing, because I think the stereotype of, Warhammer players being these like, knuckle dragging troglodytes who live in basements and all this kind of stuff, I don't think it's ever really been true. I think it's a stereotype people have applied to us rather than us calling ourselves that. Like, if I think about my hobby group in London, we've got investment bankers, designers, like everyone's in a long-term relationship. Like, none of it fits the stereotype of that nerd. And so I do on purpose actually be quite out there with, I try and dress okay. Like, I'm with friends doing this thing because I like breaking the stereotype that we're all these like basement dwellers.
Yeah.
Can we just address
why
Casey was telling us how fantastic looking he is? Can we just address the Valrak shade in the chat?
Oh,
yes, I was just about to do that, Simon. You beat me to it.
Says, I remember Phipps' custodians of cowards and refused to fight my fists in battle. So you need to spill the tea on that little comment there.
Okay, let's spill some tea. I've got to run after this, but I got to tell this story. So basically, Valrak was at No Retreat Legends, and I dearly love Valrak. I think he's a wonderful person. He's also a cunt. But we love him dearly. So basically, it ended up, I think my third game was against him. And it was my Custodians versus his Imperial Fists. And I can't be held accountable that he's rubbish at Warhammer. This is not my fault.
Ooh.
No, I'm joking, but also,
defend himself. Ooh, that's cold.
I'm not going to lie. He did win the wooden spoon that year.
Yeah, he did. To be fair, he did.
But no, the thing is, like, we played this game, and I'm just going to say, I played the objectives, and he was just like, fight me. And I'm like, no, because I'm going to stand on this objective and win. And he was just like, but fight me. So I just played the missions and the objectives like a dirty scoundrel I am. And so, yeah, ended up winning that one. But at some point, fairly soon, hopefully, me and him are going to have a rematch. My Custodians versus his Imperial Fists. And we'll see who comes out on top. Probably me again. But, I'm not going to trash talk.
I will get first, folks. You've heard it here first.
No, I will say that, like, everyone who I played at No Retreat Legends, including him, were all just really great people. I think, and this is something I've heard Peachy talk about before a little bit, I think there was this sort of assumption that, you know, people who have, you know, Instagram accounts or YouTube or whatever, that they can be quite competitive with each other and they can be like dog eat dog. That's completely not true. Everyone in that sort of content creation Warhammer space they're all extremely supportive of each other. They're all really nice people. And that's one of the reasons why, you know, No Street Legends was one of the best weekends of my life, because everyone there was like a really great person. So yeah,
I think it's well. You are going to have bad eggs in the hobby. We have bad eggs everywhere. Like we get Casey, we just can't get rid of him. But
You ain't getting rid of him.
in the hobby, you're always going to have negative Nancy's, and I think sometimes that we spend sometimes a wee bit too much going on about them instead of like championing the people that do help out people and do throw positivity on the hobby. Like so, but yeah, like it's such a good hobby to be in. Like I've only been in Warhammer like properly now the last 2 or 3 years since lockdown. Like that's it. I've played Battle Masters, Hero Quest, and Space Crusade. You know what I mean,
Yeah.
so there we go. There's one
There you go.
So was I hearing right? You've got to go. You've got another appointment, have you?
yeah, I'm kind of on 2 calls at once right now.
Right. Okay. So yeah, we'll wrap up there then. Sorry, I was a bit short and sweet. Like, hopefully we try and get you back on again because I've got so much to ask you about. Like even I've got stuff to ask you about the Salamander Terror because we've got him coming on soon as well because you're part of his podcast. We've got so many questions to get through. So
100%.
hopefully we can try and reschedule you, come back on. We've got more time and we can ask you more questions and see you throw your hands through your luscious locks for another wee while.
Absolutely, always happy to come back on. 100%.
Lovely, mate. Thanks for that.
Thanks for coming on again. Folks, we're back on Sunday with Boltstorm Wargaming, who is also a sponsor.
Yeah.
So if you've nothing to do on Sunday, join us all on Sunday at 7:30 for our next Inquisition chat. Twitster, thanks very much for joining us again, and we'll see you all soon, folks.
Cheerio.
Bye.